People of Reddit who have momentarily died then were revived, what were those fleeting moments like? Serious, when I was 14 and at a party, I drank way too fucking much. I was sort of an alcoholic even at that age, due to easy access to alcohol at the time. Also a family full of alcoholics who didn't give a fuck. Woke up on the bathroom floor vomiting my guts out, in and out of consciousness. I could faintly hear my brother in the background, calling for an ambulance. Woke up in a hospital bed where the doctor said I had been dead for 2 minutes, but they managed to revive me. My BAC was 0.56. In my experience, being dead was like being asleep. Absolutely no difference. No flashbacks, no afterlife that I could recall. It was exactly like sleeping. Very peaceful. As if that wasn't bad enough, I continued to drink heavily for years after that incident because I hadn't learned my fucking lesson apparently. I eventually sought out help after another scare, but that's a story for another day. 18 months sober. Well, nothing official and I hope this is okay, mostly for the head trip it occasionally gives me. I almost drowned in a pool when I was 5. I remember looking up and seeing my mother dismissing the lifeguard because I was only playing and his legs starting to break through the water because he knew better, before blacking out. There was nothing between that moment and throwing up water after he pulled me out of the pool. Though I can remember with absolute clarity how the water made everything shimmer as I was looking up, and sometimes I see that swimming shimmer as I'm walking around outside or if the light is really bright. And I can't help but wonder in those moments if my entire life, all my failures, successes, falling in love with a woman and having 2 children with her, the love of my life cheating on me, if everything for the last 30 years is just all inside my head during the last few moments before I die, still in that pool. Well, I'm here reading it, so no. It was like turning off a TV. 1 second things were working and the next I'm waking up surrounded by doctors and nurses with my feet in the air and a unit of blood being shot into me at high speed. Hey buddy, how you feeling? Lost you for a minute there. I was in a serious car accident, hit by a drunk driver, a week before my high school graduation. Without going into all the gory details, I lost so much blood that they declared me dead. Although I do not remember much, between the rescue workers extracting me from my car and a tree and waking up 3 weeks later, I do remember feeling very warm and seeing lights. I've always believed it was due to medications and moving between areas with different lighting, but I'm open to otherworldly suggestions. Had a heart attack last year and my heart stopped 3 times in the ER. Apparently, each time they shocked me back I woke up, how it felt, and told the staff a different knock-knock joke each time. No lights or whatever, just felt like sleep. You, knock, knock. Doctor, who's there? You, not me, dies. Doctor, fuck. I died of a drug overdose and was revived in the ambulance. I don't remember anything. 2 months ago I was OD'd on anesthesia in an oral surgeon's office. Coded in the ER and was dead for under a minute, but fuck it, it counts. Between me going out and me waking up in the ICU there is nothing. No black void, lost loved ones, messages from the other side. Nothing. Processing it since then, I don't know if there's nothingness is comforting or terrifying. Jesus Christ, why are so many dentist fields killing people? The fuck? Complete peace and serenity. Cannot be put into words. I felt something, maybe a being, guiding me with the purest and strongest love. I was about 10 at the time. Dying felt amazing, and I know this post sounds like so many other experiences, but it's true. A few years ago I was put under for a biopsy. That feeling was truly odd, and felt a lot more like death should have. Lights out, except there is no blackness either, no concept of time, could have been out a minute or a year and wouldn't have known the difference. My 6th grade teacher had a similar experience to your peace and serenity one. She was electrocuted as a child, died, and was revived. She couldn't really explain how wonderful the feeling was, but she said for many years after that, every night she would think about it, and the memory of that warm, awesome feeling would help her fall asleep. As she got older, the memory of that feeling slowly started fading away, until she couldn't feel it anymore at all. I had this montage of regrets, really cliché I know, blast through my mind. Kind of a turning point for me. Nobody knows if I was properly dead or just unconscious and not breathing with a very weak pulse. I was in a motorbike accident 2 months ago, to the day now, 21st of April actually. I don't remember anything from 30 minutes before the accident and some time after. I woke up in a truck on the way to hospital. My friend said when he got to me after the accident I wasn't breathing and he couldn't feel my pulse. I was lying there completely still and cramped up and stiff, he said. He started CPR and after around 2 minutes I started breathing on my own, he said. For me it was just a blackout. No dreams, no visions, just nothing. I remember being very confused when I woke up, like why am I lying down on my back? Why is it so dark? Why does my body hurt all over? Apparently I asked over 10 times what happened and apparently I shall be happy to be alive today. Congratulations, you died on my birthday. I've had quite a few surgeries in my life due to 2 bouts with cancer and a genetic joint disorder. Out of the 33 surgeries, I only remember 2. I had to have my left hip replaced when I was 17. I had an accident combined with my disorder and it needed to be done. I'm still hazy on the details, but I didn't do well with the anesthesia and I ended up dead for about 2 minutes. All I remember is thinking that I needed to see my mom. Everything spun, there was a buzzing in my ears and I needed my mom. Next thing I remember was waking up in a new room with a tube in my throat. I probably don't count, because my heart was only stopped for mere seconds, but the only thing I could see was my spouse at my feet. By that I mean my eyes were closed, but his struggle was the only thing my mind could imagine and focus on. Backstory, racing heartbeat a few months ago that was only corrected by medicine stopping my heart and then restarting it. Brief, but intense. Oh, and there was that other time as a kid I nearly drowned after getting an ankle caught between rocks in a river. Then, I remember thinking just 2 things. 1, I should probably chill out, and focus only on pulling my foot out. Very clear what I was to do. 2, my dad is going to come get me. Pulled my ankle out on my own, but my dad was wet up to his thighs yanking me above water simultaneously. Yay dad. I had an allergic reaction to something I ate and passed out while I was splashing water on my face. At some point my heart stopped and got restarted while I was in the ambulance on the way to the hospital. I remember a feeling of being sucked backwards, extremely slowly like being pulled through water and this blackness fading in and out. At one point it faded back in and I was staring out at a garden. It wasn't filled with flowers, just dust and patchy grass. There was a playground with a merry-go-round in the middle and 2 children running around it. A boy and a girl. It's difficult to describe, but I got the feeling that I could choose if I wanted to stay or leave, but every time I tried to go back I was held in place. I went through all the reasons I wanted to go back, and when I told the presence I didn't want to abandon my mother, whatever held me finally let go. I snapped back into my body. Heart had stopped for 6 minutes. I went in for surgery and was put under anesthetic. When they put you under here, they also give you antibiotics. I had a very atypical anaphylactic reaction to one of them. My blood pressure absolutely crashed. I was 40-20 for the most part, until I flatlined, but I had no esophageal swelling or any rashes come up on my skin. It took 40 minutes to stabilize me. What was it like? Well, I woke up after the surgery and said, oh, wow, I'm not in any pain at all, and the surgeon sort of said, yeah, we didn't operate. Not 15 minutes later, I was hot and clammy, then my BP fell again. Didn't flatline a second time, but came close. I don't remember anything. Apparently my mother encountered some freaky paranormal shit that one of the nurses also noticed at the exact time of my flatline, though. Well, tell us what she saw. Okay. So, apparently about 30 minutes after I'd been taken in, remember, my reaction happened soon after I'd been put under. Apparently the room got really cold, like a breeze, even though hospitals are stuffy as fuck, and my chart fell out of the thing it was sitting in, which has a front and side lip, so it couldn't just topple out. Mum said oh my god, because she spooks easily, and the nurse said you saw that too? When my anesthesiologist came in after I was stabilized, Mum asked what happened to Avinia. To his obvious surprise, she, to this day, believes that it was my grandmother telling her that something had happened to me. I'm not so sure, as I thought that, if that were the case, I'd have gotten some sort of sense from her while I was out. I've OD'd a few times. Every time it's like slipping into a peaceful sleep. When Jay was revived I seriously remember just being asleep. Darkness and peace. You okay now? Happened during high school, maybe when I was 14 to 15, had swimming classes, nearly drowned as I wasn't experienced in swimming and drifted into the deep end of the pool and people thought I was just messing with them pretending to drown/flailing, until I started to sink. That's when a classmate jumped in and pulled me out. All I remember was just seeing bright light everywhere and no sound, just bright light, like in those movies how people emerge from white light. I got alcohol poisoning when I was 15. I remember being drugged into the ER by my father and 2 cops. The only thing I recall was my father trying to wake me up. My heart stopped beating and the doctors had to resuscitate me. If my dad didn't come check on me that night, the doctors said I probably would have died. Had a surgery and was told I lost half the blood in my body. Only thing I remember in PACU was seeing intense brightness that did not hurt, hearing most reassuring male voice say you are not going to die and then a panic female voice call the anesthesiologist we need blood now still can't get a hold of the doctor. I saw a cart of supplies off to the left of bed by shoulder. I woke up about 3 days later and do not recall any time in between. Whatever happened in that time of seeing the brightest light and hearing male voice, it was an indescribable warmest peaceful sensation. I did not know what was going on, but knew I would be okay. I was 20 at the time. 24 years later it seems I can recall what a vivid moment that was. I am convinced there is more / out of body and will be indescribably unlike anything we have ever experienced. I had a CAT scan when I was around 15 and it turns out that I was allergic to the intravenous contrast material. I noticed itchiness in my throat and tongue and started to swell. I felt like I was breathing through a coffee stirring straw straining to suck enough air into and out of my lungs as the attendants asked me to be still. I don't remember passing out, or having a seizure requiring a code team. Just waking up bewildered on a gurney with my mom standing near, looking worried and holding a paper cup of orange juice. I was told to avoid shellfish. I choked on something while at a community pool when I was 10. No one could dislodge it from my throat. I turned blue, passed out, and they eventually gave up until coincidentally my mother, walking in, a nurse, freaked the fuck out and saved/revived me until the paramedics came. I was out for several minutes. The paramedics said that I died and was revived by my mom. During that time I was, in my mind, laying on the precipice of a waterfall. Water was rushing over me, not in a bad or good way, but it was loud and I couldn't hear anything. White washed over me. The current pulled me closer to the cliff but something held me back. Eventually I heard a paramedic asking me to squeeze his hand if I hugged him, which then became the hand holding me in my death dream. Yes, the light was bright and washed over my whole body, and yes it went from chaotic/loud to peaceful. This was the seminal event of my and my family's lives and changed our relationship forever. A few years ago, I started getting sick. It started with an ear infection, then an eye infection. And then one day I literally could not lift myself out of bed, I was too weak. So a friend came and took me to the hospital. Turns out I had severe septic shock and I was admitted into the hospital for 5 weeks before I was discharged again as healthy. Those first 2 weeks I was touch and go. but all I remember is the hallucinations and vivid dreams that I had the entire time. For example, I recall being in the medical bay of the Millennium Falcon being treated, or one time where I was a gunner on a tank. The doctors in charge of my case later told me that he suspected I was no further than 2 hours from death. What caused this? An asymptomatic ingrown toenail, as far as we can determine. My cousin put cyanide in my food. Long story short, I died. I floated backwards through a tube in the center of my brain and I was looking down at my body above and behind, through the wall. Somebody was holding me in place so I couldn't focus in on the white world around me. I was told I had to go back. Time didn't exist. I felt really powerful, like I was back to myself again. Then I went over a gap with no bridge and went back in my body. I grabbed my shoulders and pulled myself up into a sitting position on my bed. The cyanide made me permanently weak. I have been homeless for 9 years now because I'm too weak to hold a job. People keep telling me it's all in my head, so I just don't talk to people anymore. Right now I'm living on the mountain. All I have is food stamps. I will probably die within the year. I can't wait to go back. Are none of us going to question the cousin with the cyanide? I wish I could remember. I just woke up in ICU 6 days after the wreck, all wired and caged together, tubes down my throat and stuff, and I still don't remember anything that happened. Just a normal day memory, then boom. Wake up in ICU all ducked up and broken. This happened in January of this year. It's been one crazy experience. Trying to learn to walk again, and it is so very hard. It makes me wonder if it's this hard for babies that are learning to walk for the first time. BC if it is, I have a new mad respect for babies. After a heavy night of raving at an after party, a chick gave me what she said was LSD, but was actually 25 Einbohm. My brain swelled and I had to be resuscitated by paramedics. A lot of incoherent shit happened because I was tripping, but I remember the universe wanting me to let go, let myself die, and I tried to fight it to stay alive. Eventually I gave in and let go. It felt like my entire existence made sense and I was completely at peace. But sometime after that I woke up in hospital and reality has never been the same since. I once OD'd on a lot of different drugs, not on purpose, and I was dead for around 15 minutes before I got to the ER. All I can remember is floating above my body watching them operate on me and my parents crying their hearts out. Very surreal and freaky. They said I had a 90% chance of being brain dead for the rest of my life, shitting myself in a wheelchair, and my parents thought about just donating my organs. I would have been fine with this. But something told them not to, and when I woke up, I was completely fine with only minor damage to my frontal lobe causing some short-term memory problems that will eventually go away. I am very lucky to be alive and healthy, and it made me realize no good feeling you get from drugs is worth seeing your parents in that state. Haven't really touched any drugs since. Was in a car accident about 10 years ago. It was a rollover, I wasn't driving, ended up flatlining and being transported via helicopter to a hospital and put into a medically induced coma. I remember nothing. To this day I have no memory of the accident or much leading up to it. While in a coma I don't even remember dreaming. Did you hallucinate when you were coming off the coma drugs? I saw some crazy things for a few days, and no one warned my poor mother that it was a possibility, so she thought I had gone insane and was going to have to be institutionalized for the rest of my days. This happened to my grandfather. He was old and knew his time was coming soon, so he made a bucket list. Going to a baseball game, eating at certain restaurants, and a few other things. On the way home from the baseball game while driving, my dad looked over and saw my grandfather's head fall backwards, his eyes rolling the back of his head, one of his arms in the air and his other hand slapping it. My dad pulled over and started yelling and shaking him, and my grandfather snapped out of it and told him he was okay and to take him home. Later that night my dad was watching TV and stopped on a show where they were talking about near-death experiences, so it made my dad wonder what exactly happened to his dad. He got up and drove to his dad's house and asked him about what happened in the car. My grandfather said I saw a bright light and a hand reaching for my hand, so I was slapping it away. My father-in-law went into septic shock in the ER. His heart stopped for a bit there. He says that during that time he did the cliche of going towards a white light, at the end of which he found himself inside a white room. He experienced it like it was a waiting room, and the feeling of peace just totally washed over him. I'm not religious, but I'm fascinated by his story. TL, Dr. Death is super peaceful. I was fighting, and failing, to get my head back over the surface of the water, and then I woke up with my back in the sand staring up at a really hot EMT whom I immediately goofily smiled at. I was dead for like a minute, if even. Moral, don't swim in riptides. I drowned a couple times. Fleeting is not the word. I was dead for 45 minutes and 34 minutes respectively. To answer your question, it was exactly like all the time that passed before I was born. Non-existence. Death holds nothing to be scared of. Don't fear the Reaper. I died as a 6-year-old kid. I suffered a concussion because I hit my head and didn't realize it. I went to sleep, and after waking up I had problems with my vision, and then I lost my vision completely while feeling normal. Shortly after that I lost consciousness and I woke up in the ambulance, only seeing the light of the ceiling of the ambulance. My dad later told me that they rushed me to a hospital and they then rushed me to another specialized hospital with an ambulance. They had to revive me in the ambulance, and it was in that moment that I woke up again. It felt like I was sleeping, like nothing happened. I remember losing my vision, being blind, and then nothing until I woke up in the ambulance. Never posted on Reddit, ever. This thread was very powerful to read and I felt compelled to share my story. I have been struggling with drug abuse since I was 14, slowly escalated to injecting various things. By the time I was 18 I was given my first opportunity to inject heroin. A using friend of mine had split a bag with me and even then warned me about the strength of the substance and to be careful. Next thing I know I'm preparing to inject around 10 p.m, needle in arm, immediately followed by blackout and zero recollection of what happened when I finally awoke many hours later, possibly 6 a.m. Still sitting on the side of my bed, needle still in vein, and dried blood down my arm. Not sure if I died or anything close, but I certainly did not move from the side of my bed for many hours with no recollection of what had occurred. Just complete darkness. No peaceful feeling, no bright light, no dreams. Still haunts me to this day. I consider myself very lucky because many friends and others that struggle with addiction do not come out of that. Was standing up, had a weird thought like, why is the world tipping over? I grappled with how gravity worked and then was on my back. Everything is internal at this point. I couldn't communicate with the outside world. I felt embarrassment that I fell over, then darkness closed in. Only way I can think to describe it. I could see the gym I was in, but it was decreasing. Eventually my sight was gone and I was a little ball of consciousness, losing bits of myself piecemeal. I would forget more and more until I was just a teeny ball of awareness, not really sure what being human meant, but very sure I didn't want to vanish. My little ball struggled against all that dark and then I blipped out. I was apparently out for only a minute before they resuscitated me, but I was depressed for weeks after. I was only 6, so I don't exactly remember everything. Since I was sick, still sick now, yay chronic illness, I was in pain a lot, so this seemed quite peaceful. It wasn't even scary, just soothing and calm, everything fading and all that, like being super tired and finally being able to sleep. I wish I could feel it again sometime soon. When I was 4, my dad went into a coma. It turned out he had diabetes and pancreatitis. They diagnosed him with type 2 diabetes, but in reality he has type 1, his pancreas is completely dead. Anyway, he died several times during his coma and I never asked him about it until a little while ago. He didn't see anything, but felt a presence, and he felt their emotions. He said it was peaceful. I almost died of a blunt force trauma to the head and subsequent blood loss/loss of blood pressure. Very peaceful, actually. Lots of white. No sound. Vaguely aware of my existence, or that I was Amy at all. Completely removed from the situation at hand, definitely unaware that I was in a bad way. It'd be like a movie scene with slow-motion flowers falling through the brightly lit air with the serene oriental flute music. Then like that, I came back. On my knees. I looked down at my arms and hands and everything else completely covered in blood, roughly in a 2 to 3 foot diameter surrounding me. Kids looking on in sheer terror. Bad day had by all. I overdosed on heroin, flatlined for 17 seconds, didn't respond to 4 hits of Narcan, and eventually had to be defibrillated to jumpstart my heart that had stopped beating. All I remember is that it was like being underwater with your eyes open on a sunny day. This weird weightless silent peace and the light fragments piecing through. Then I woke up with my chest on fire, handcuffed to a hospital bed. I'll never forget that though. Happened to me twice. The first time was a very bad reaction to a prescription drug for high blood pressure, namely trazodone. After revival I was told that my BP had dropped to 50/0. Fleeting moments? It was more like 10 minutes. Totally collapsed instantly and there was no sensations of anything. Just simply gone. Regained consciousness and found myself laying on the floor covered in blood. I had been sitting at my desk and hit everything on the way down. The second time I was sitting in my chair, waiting for the Blue Jays game to start and my heart simple stopped beating. Never felt anything so still in my life. Vision went black within about 3 seconds, and then while still aware, felt myself falling to my right side. That scared the hell out of me. Then, for some reason I felt myself let out a massive cough and my heart started beating again. I sat there in shock at what had just happened to me for about 20 minutes and then thought, screw that, and cracked open a bottle of vodka. So I didn't die, but came quite close. I choked on a piece of bacon at a restaurant. What a way to go, eh? It just slipped down my throat without getting a chance to be chewed. I started trying to cough. My auntie hit me on the back a few times. Then I remember my brother shouting his lips are gone blue, and that's it for about 30 seconds, where I came round on the floor after my mother did the Heimlich maneuver on my unconscious self and got the bacon out second go, and then dropped me because she had a really bad back and I was heavy. Needed 2 ventilation breaths to restart breathing, which my auntie did. Mum and auntie both nurses. Yes, my life flashed before my eyes. Interestingly, it was scenes that are still the only ones I can really remember from childhood, like seeing my dad's car crashed into our garage and my brother with his head stuck in a goldfish bowl. For you young folks who are terrified of dying, some words from a 52-year-old female: it gets less scary as you age. I can remember being like you, so scared of the idea, and now not so much. If you've had a lot of shit go down in your life, it actually can start to seem like a relief from the worry and work that life can be, sometimes. Usually life rocks. But it can seem so long and so short at the same time. It's odd that 49 here, male. Recently had a close call with what turned out to be a false positive diagnosis. Found myself contemplating the possibility and realized it wouldn't be so bad. No more bills, no more commute. Sounds simplistic, but I felt a weird kind of relief. My heart stopped for almost a minute once, so hopefully that counts. I had passed out a few times randomly, so I had to see a cardiologist. Spent a week doing tests that was capped off by a tilt table test, where they strap you to a table and tilt it to 70 degrees to see if you pass out. I did pass out, but faster and more violently than usual. All I remember is having a very vivid dream. I cannot remember details, but I do remember it felt very normal and very calm. It was like a quiet, lazy Sunday afternoon. When they revived me, I was actually startled by how panicked everyone was. It was like being woken up in the middle of the night by a fire alarm. The last time I had a blood pressure crash, this is what it was like. My husband was shaking me and talking really loudly, and I was just calm and shocked he was so upset. I think I asked him if he was okay. Back around 2002 I was in intensive care due to a lung infection. I died. What did I feel? Before I clocked out? The pain of them attempting to restart my heart via electrocution and their hands on me. I felt it all, everything they tried, everything they did was registering even if I couldn't quite process what was going on. Then I was numb and warm. What did I feel when I was dead? Jack shit. You feel nothing. What you feel is the process of dying and then the fractured sensations which come after being revived. I was hospitalized for typhoid fever. I remember one night waking up because I was feeling cold. Called the nurse to ask for more blanket, she returns with 2 hot water bottle and put it on my feet. Still feeling very cold, so she called the doctor. I blacked out before he arrived. Next thing I know, I was in the ICU with 4 drips on my arms and feet and tubes coming out of my nose. Turns out I had contracted dengue fever at the same time that was not diagnosed. Went into coma and flatlined more than once. Didn't see/dream about anything, it was just like going to a deep sleep for me. There was rage and nothingness. I didn't see a bright light, I didn't see my life, all 6 years of it flashed before my eyes. If it did, I don't remember. I remember being angry and feeling very wronged. It literally wasn't my time and I felt cheated. My mom said that when I was being resuscitated I had flatlined in ICU from a very bad asthma attack that I was fighting the medic staff when I was coming back. I attempted suicide when I was 15. I struggled for a few seconds before I gave up and decided to just let it happen. In the last moments before I passed out, everything started to get a bluish-green haze. Then my vision slowly faded out to just darkness. There was nothing. It was completely black. I think my last thoughts were something like "it's over." After that, I think I was conscious for a while. It felt like 3 hours, but it must have only been about 3 minutes. I remembered walking around on a completely black plane. Then it felt like something grabbed the collar of my shirt and pulled me backwards with a huge force. That was the last thing I remember. When I woke up at the hospital, they were ecstatic. I had been in a coma for almost 4 months and they didn't think I was going to make it. My dad just sat in the corner and cried for about 45 minutes. Then he hugged me and said that he loved me. That's about it. After that it was normal hospital stuff. Things just went black. Then I woke up in crazy pain in the ambulance. I was T-boned, broke 4 ribs, spleen exploded, lung was punctured. Would not recommend. This happened last Tuesday night 10 p.m. I went to the ER around 5:30 because I didn't feel right. My chest was tight. Had WEC. It was good state for observations. I had a heart monitor on and was being monitored by the ICU. At 10 my heart stopped. At 1:04 p.m. a very concerned nurse shook me awake. I was angry because I told her that I had just fallen asleep and I was dreaming that I was walking my dogs. I told her there must be something wrong with your machine. As it turned out, there was nothing wrong with their machine. I had 3 clogged arteries which I have stents in now. When I woke up after she shook me I felt fine. I would have sworn that I was walking my dogs and it was just a typical Tuesday night. I didn't flatline, to my knowledge, but apparently I did come very close to death at the dentist office once due to a nitrous malfunction. I remember a deep sinking feeling, and a bunch of beeps that almost sounded like a techno song. I had come to terms with the fact that my life up to that point was not real, and that my real purpose in life was to beep in this techno song. I got ready to beep, and then I heard my name, what I can only assume was the dentist. Then, I finally did beep. And then it was nothing but calm, followed by nothingness. I woke up in an ambulance after being given an epinephrine injection. Can't say how close I came to dying for sure, but the EMTs said my heartbeat was well below 20 BPM and very difficult to read. Honestly, with the exception of waking up, it was all very peaceful. In my past life of addiction, I overdosed and was dead for a short time. If I hadn't been revived, I would have never known I was dead. It was exactly the same as the familiar part of sleep, where you are completely and utterly unaware of anything. I agree with many others on this. Being dead is not the problem, it's the implications of your death that scares the hell out of you. Liked what you saw? Hit like, subscribe and the bell icon for more crazy Reddit content.